flower bed. They're going to plant some tulips. They might plant a small garden, something. And every time you plant, I have a pot outside my garage at home that I've tried to cultivate some wildflowers. They're thinking about it, although it's been really hot and I keep watering them, whatnot. But guess what else I have to go tend to out in that pot? Almost every day, because even though I'm watering the, hopefully, flowers, you know what comes up without water? Weeds. And this is potting soil. I'm thinking, what, rude seed drifted into my potting soil? Something did. I go out there, I did one, just a couple of them just yesterday, pulled the weed, little crabgrass or something. Flowers are trying. Crabgrass is going, hi, I'm here. I pull it out, toss it out in the parking lot or whatever, or the lawn, let the lawnmower run over it. You know what? I could go this afternoon and probably pull up another one while I'm watering those poor burned up flowers with the heat. Why doesn't the heat burn up the weeds? Just doesn't do it. Now, I could let those weeds go. Some of them might bloom. Yeah, they might look pretty, but they wouldn't be what I planted. And if I did that, that flower pot would be taken over by the weeds. Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. Going out there, weed. Reminds me of my granddad when he would plant a garden when I was a kid. He was constantly going out to the garden, not to pull carrots, not to check on the radishes, but to weed everything. He was constantly weeding. He taught me to do it too. And yes, it came out for the better, but it took a while. And even he would get to the point where he'd think, I'll be glad when gardening season's over and I won't have to care about it anymore. Jesus is talking to the disciples, and as I like to say, anyone else who cares to listen. And as we know, he often spoke in parables. Some people might even call those riddles. And really they are. He would describe something, and the disciples would listen, but then once in a while, and it happened in this case, the parable of the weeds, the disciples would go up to him and say, we didn't get it. We're listening to you, but we didn't quite get it. Would you explain to us what you're talking about? What do you mean? Jesus goes on to say, well, the one who sowed the seed, the good seed, that's the Son of Man. Notice he doesn't say that's me. He says that's the Son of Man. He uses it in the third person. He said, and the weeds that pop up are, depending on the version you read, you might see it as the evil one, the evildoer, temptation. The weeds that pop up are the ones that the evildoer puts in. And if you're not careful, they will take over. Well, then, of course, the disciples say, and I don't blame them, well, don't you want us to go out and pull those up? No, because if you do that, what happens? You can get passionate. You think when I've weeded a flower pot or a little garden that I may not have accidentally pulled up something that I wanted? It's happened. And you go, oops. Well, sacrifice that one. And sometimes you need to thin the herd, that's true. But didn't mean to do that. Jesus is cautioning us, be careful. Be careful, because if you go out and you just start haphazardly grabbing those, quote, weeds, what happens if you pull up the good crop? What happens indeed is that you will not have a whole lot of productive crop. Those beautiful flowers you were trying to raise, those vegetables you were trying to raise, those fruit trees even you were trying to raise from infancy, if you will, or a sprig, you end up running the risk of killing off. When Jesus wanted to illustrate the difficulty of separating those who would be part of the kingdom of God and those who, in that description, would not be part of the kingdom of God, he turned to the fields because people could understand, even then, maybe especially then, agriculture. In that part of the world, there's often wheat fields, but it could be any crop, really. But he would turn to the wheat fields and talk about the difference between the real wheat, or the real crop, if you will, and the fake crop. The area I was born in, southern Kansas, of course, Kansas is known for wheat, just like Iowa's known for corn. Not that Kansas doesn't have corn, but Kansas is really wheat. And the one thing about wheat is you don't usually have what we call corn sweat. I mean, we have the humidity in Kansas, but wheat's drier. And when it came time to harvest, first part of June, you wanted it dry. That's when they actually wanted it hot and dry, no rain, no hail especially. They wanted that moisture content. I was always told, because this came from my great-granddad before I was born, even passed down through my grandparents, that you wanted the moisture content no more than 17%. Now, I'm not a scientist, but that's what I heard. You get any more than that, you can run the risk of the wheat going bad, even getting moldy or mildew. You want it dry. But even with wonderful crops of wheat, as a kid, I liked to watch them take the combines out and harvest them. There was other wheat that would show up. And it was always called volunteer wheat. Volunteer wheat that would pop up for some reason in your front yard. That wasn't even close to a wheat field. Maybe by your back porch. My grandpa taught me that. And it was wheat. It was real wheat. But it was also something that he wasn't afraid to mow over because it wasn't meant to be there. Of course, as a kid, I loved to pull it and rub it and actually try to eat the grains. They almost break your teeth, but they wouldn't hurt you. Volunteer wheat, he would call it. Wheat that didn't make the cut. Those are my words, literally and figuratively. Wheat that decided to be an interloper, a fake crop that needed to be dealt with. What about our spiritual lives? Do any of us have weeds in our spiritual lives? I'm going to raise my hand real quick. Sure I do. Why? Because I'm a human being. I'm a human being. I have my talents. I have my opportunities. That's a nice way of saying failures. I have my chances. I have things that I've messed up in my life. I have things I hope I've gotten right. Hopefully more of those than the other. And I'm sure it won't be the first time that I mess up something, that I come across some weeds. Now, I have a choice, just as all of us do. We can let those weeds just, fine, take over, win, don't care. And there are days we probably feel like that. You ever have days you get up, may have been this morning even, I don't know. Ever had those days where you get up and you think, I don't want to play today? And it may be because it's a Monday, and if you have a 9 to 5 or whatever you want to call it, you think, I do not want to go to my 9 to 5. Till I officially retired from Wells Fargo last October, I had those days. I'll admit it. I had those days where I said, much as I loved my job and loved the people, how did Monday get here this quick? The weekend went like that. And now 5 days, it'll be like a snail crawling along the ground. There'll be other days that happens. Maybe there's something you're facing that day. Maybe it's a medical appointment. Maybe it's someone you need to talk to. Maybe it's a meeting you have to go to that you're not really looking forward to, or you'd rather be doing something else with your time, and you get up and you think, oh, I don't want to play today. Maybe you've been invited to something as seemingly fun as a party. Get invited to a big party, say 2 months in advance. And then the day gets there and you think, do I really have to go to this? I don't really feel like it. And then if you're like me, and I've been guilty of this, I admit, the day comes and you go and you have more fun than you thought you would. Now, that does not apply to VBS this past week. I want to let Ann know that right now. I had fun there, and I knew I was going to. I was a storyteller at VBS on Thursday, and I just forgot who it was. I was Paul. And for some reason, I put a fake beard on. which a couple little girls kept wanting to pull the fake beard, which I thought was hilarious. And then one of them tried to pull my real beard, and I said, okay, I'm glad it's short. But the point being, what do we do, or what can we do to purify our spiritual hearts? A lot. What can we do to make sure they stay 100% pure? Trick question. Probably not a thing. Again, because we're people. We all have the capability of judging others. We all have the capability of judging ourselves. Not only do we have that capability, we all do it, whether we want to admit it or not. As I was coming down here this morning, of course, not much traffic, especially on Scotch Ridge Road, and I get to Scotch Ridge at Highway 5 there in Carlisle, and a red light, and I was behind a car that was going to turn right, and I admit I thought, okay, you could turn right. I wasn't late by any means, but you could turn right on red. And then the light turned green, and that person sat there for about 5 seconds. Now, I didn't honk. I'm not that impatient. I'll admit, out of my mouth came, turn.